Hey everyone, it's Lisa. Welcome back to my channel. I'm super excited about today's video because I'm going to be talking about Misozuke and how you can make this miso fermented tofu cheese-like spread at home. Misozuke, sometimes called miso tofu cheese, is a traditional Japanese dish that originates from Fukuoka, where tofu is fermented with miso paste anywhere from 1 week to a couple years. The one you cure for just a couple days is more so like a marinated tofu, often eaten as a side, appetizer, or a snack, whereas the one that is fermented for longer, the texture turns into this super creamy, buttery cream cheese-like spread that has this really rich, salty umami and slightly tangy flavor. This version is often paired with either sake or wine and is served with bread, crackers, on its own, with vegetables, and you can even use it as a spread like in sandwiches or wraps. If you're familiar with Chinese fermented tofu like this one, where the tofu is fermenting in brine, it's kind of like that, but instead of the tofu fermenting in a liquid, it's fermented with miso wrapped around it. Also with Chinese fermented tofu, it's more so used in marinades, sauces, and for seasoning, whereas misozuke, you kind of eat it more as a snack or spread it on food. So just to give you a quick rundown of how it works, you're basically wrapping tofu with miso paste that's been seasoned with sake, sugar, and sometimes yuzu salt, chili, or seaweed, and that gets stored in an airtight container in the fridge for a period of time. And then what happens is the enzymes in the miso paste break down the proteins in the tofu, and that's how you get that creamy, rich texture. In terms of fermenting time, I've tested it with 1 week, 1 month, 2 months, and this one right here is 105 days. I also had one fermenting for about 140 days, but with that one, I noticed that after like the 100-day mark, the texture and flavor didn't change too much. So I think 80 to 110 days is like the perfect time frame for me to achieve that creamy, tangy, cream cheese-like texture. I hope I got you excited about misozuke, so let's get into getting it started. Alright, so first we have to make the paste that goes around the tofu. You can use just miso paste, but I also like to add in a bit of sake and sugar for some flavor. And you can also add things like chili powder, nori, yuzu, umeboshi, some zest of citrus fruits, or dried herbs as well. Here I have a block of firm tofu I gently press for about half an hour. You can use either firm or extra firm tofu. The extra firm tofu just comes out a little thicker. Then wrap the tofu in cheesecloth. I usually just wrap it once so it's easier for the miso paste to penetrate into the tofu. Transfer that over to an airtight container and then spread the miso paste mixture around the entire block. You want to make sure that it's completely covered without any gaps. I find using an offset spatula like this one the easiest, and I start with the bottom and then just kind of flip it over, and then I cover up the top and then the sides. Then repeat that with the other half of the tofu. Place the cover on top and then just store that in the fridge for 80 to 100 days. About once a week, check on it and drain out any excess liquid that might have accumulated. Sometimes there's more, sometimes there's less, but you just want to make sure that the container stays as dry as possible to prevent any mold from growing. If you do see a small spot of mold growing, carefully remove it and then just replace it with some of the leftover miso paste or use fresh miso paste. At the 1 month mark, you can unwrap it and give it a taste test to see if you want to ferment it longer, or you can have multiple blocks going at once and enjoy them with different tastes and textures and kind of compare them at different stages to see what length of fermenting time you like the best. Misozuke can be eaten as a snack with some crackers or vegetables, and it's super delicious on toast or in sandwiches as a spread. It's also really good mixed into sauteed vegetables, mixed rice, and noodles. I actually made 2 feta pasta inspired dishes with misozuke. For one of them, I just replaced the feta with some misozuke and used udon noodles. And then the other variation was spicy kimchi with rice cakes. And I just replaced the feta with misozuke again. And they were both so delicious because the misozuke is super creamy and salty and has a ton of flavor on its own. And lastly, to store misozuke, just wrap some parchment paper around it or vegan wax paper and keep it in an airtight container for about 7 to 10 days. So here's mine that's been fermenting for 105 days. I hope you can see just how creamy and buttery it is. When you slice into it, it kind of breaks like this, but when you spread it, it gets super duper creamy. And I know it looks a little bit gritty, but that grittiness just like disappears. It's so good. Wow. I'm actually in awe every time I eat this, like, it's so cool. This is so different than vegan cheeses made with potatoes or nuts or seeds. To me, it's even richer and creamier, even though there's like no fat in it. And I've been making Misozuke for about a year now, and every time I'm just amazed by food chemistry. Plus, it's so much cheaper to make than like nut-based cheeses. The only downside to Misozuke is the waiting time, because it does take about 100 days to achieve that creamy, tangy, cheese-like texture and flavor. But you can just have a rotation of them going. I usually keep 1.5 blocks fermenting in the fridge at all times. So I think I covered everything I want to in terms of introducing this fermented tofu and getting it started so that you can make it at home. I really hope this video left you inspired to making your own Misozuke at home. It does take a while, but I promise it's so worth it. If you have any questions at all, I'll leave the blog post link where I go into a lot more detail on Misozuke, troubleshooting, what to look for, how long to ferment, and some questions I thought you guys might have about Misozuke. If you do try making Misozuke, let me know how it goes in the comment section below, or show me the progress over on Instagram. I'd love to see them. As always, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you're having the best day, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!